on her back. Her eyes were open, looking up into the sky.
Jack the Ripper was aptly named. He literally ripped.
It began 136 years ago. 5 gruesome murders sent shockwaves through London, causing a state of unending confusion and fear. And the killer? People only knew him as Jack the Ripper. Whitechapel's Autumn of Terror started on August 31st, 1888, with the murder of a lady of the night named Mary Ann Nichols. Her body was found on Bucks Row Street with her throat slit and some of her organs missing. Despite how gruesome the crime was, people didn't give it much thought, believing it was a one-off. Also, violent crimes were very common at the time, and murders of prostitutes were even more common. But a week later, Jack the Ripper struck again, and the murder was just as brutal. That's when the police realized they had a psychopathic serial killer on their hands. Annie Chapman, another prostitute, was found dead in the same vicinity as the first murder. This time, the victim's womb was stolen. The nature of both murders suggested the killer was likely someone who had anatomical knowledge and was targeting prostitutes or women in general. The police went house to house trying to gather information and to see if there were any witnesses, but they came up empty-handed. On September 27th, Jack the Ripper made his next move with a sinister letter to the Central News Agency. The letter mocked the police's efforts in trying to find him and promised new murders. True to his word, he committed his heinous crimes just 3 days later. Not one, but 2 bodies were discovered within a mile of each other. Both were killed in the same way as the other victims. Then the police department received another taunting message. For more than a month after, there was silence. There were no letters and no murders. People thought that the terror might have been finally over, but it was just the calm before the storm. On November 9th, Jack the Ripper carried out his most horrific killing. Mary Kelly was murdered in her bed, and her body and face were mutilated beyond recognition. Her landlord, who was the first to see the body, described the scene as the work of the devil.
The sight we saw, I cannot drive away from my mind. It looked more like the work of a devil than of a man.
That was Jack the Ripper's final victim. Although some believe there may have been more murders, nothing was confirmed. Investigations went on for years after the murders had stopped. Some witnesses claiming to have seen the killer came forward. With the information they gathered, the police were able to create a rough description of his appearance. He was a stocky man with a fair complexion, a mustache, and dark eyes. He stood at 5'5" to 5'9" and was between 25 to 35 years old. Theories of who Jack the Ripper might be went crazy. Some believed he was Queen Victoria's grandson, and others believed it was famous Victorian painter Walter Sickert. However, only 3 official suspects were named: Montague Johnson Druitt, Michael Ostrow, and Aaron Kosminski. But there was not enough evidence to incriminate any of them. To this day, no one can unmask the true identity of Jack the Ripper, and the case remains one of the world's most famous unsolved murders.